Welcome back to Walking the London Road. Another very mixed week for Oxford United. Connor, Will, and myself are going to dissect that game against Coventry. But first, gents, which was your favourite goal from the 6-0 thumping that we suffered at the hands of Brighton?
Plenty to choose from.
Yeah.
yeah. It's I felt that, obviously we were going into that game as the underdogs, and the quality of some of their players. I think the Zimas and Champalos Kostoulas, I think is the name of the Greek club they brought off the bench, worth like 15 million quid each, which is about, I think, probably the price of our entire squad. But overall, it was a pretty shambolic performance, and obviously led to lots of questions being asked about our goalkeeping situation, which we'll get on to in a minute. Connor, I want to go to you with this question in terms of, was there too much to worry about from that game, or do we just put it down to, look, they're a much better side than we are?
They're a much better side than we are, Sam. They're in the Premier League. They've consistently been in mid-table, pushing for Europe. They're going to want to push for Europe again. Let's be honest. I think that 0.01% of us went in with a chance thinking that we were going to get through the game. And then I think that if a few of us had a drink, we'd think, oh yeah, we have a chance. But let's be honest, did we really expect to get through against Premier League Brighton, as you say, especially with the amount of money that they've spent this season, which is highly unusual for them. So they're obviously trying to go for Europe and go for something. However, what we expected to happen happened. Just bin it, move on into the league.
Well, I did. Yeah. There was kind of one or two things I want you to go on this one in terms of, we did see the same pattern of Elliot Moore getting caught out, obviously, massively getting caught for pace as he has in the Championship, especially against Premier League opposition. But there did seem from the boys a bit of a kind of, when it got to 3-0, they kind of just gave up and, almost were giving Brighton the opportunity to rack up a record scoreline.
Definitely, yeah. It just sort of felt like they sort of lost interest. They knew the game was gone. It's a Carabao Cup. Who really cares? You could sort of see that on the pitch. They weren't really tracking back. They weren't really chasing the defenders as they were going through on goal. Even when we had our sort of like, we had a brief spell at the end of the end of the second half where, I think we had it cleared off the line. Even then, they just kept coming forward and it just kept scoring. I mean, unfortunately for me, I was part of that 0.01%. I was very hopeful. I thought, what, maybe we can get a goal at the beginning, maybe we can get through it. But yeah, we were just completely dominated in every part of the pitch. I mean, we had, it would happen that we'd have a throw-in or we'd have a corner, give it a minute, and we'd be in our own half, and it would be Matt Ingram, and they'd be pressing us and they'd be containing us. Their Premier League opposition, we just got completely outclassed. It's just one of those things. I don't think it's obviously not great, but it's not cause for mass panic, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, that I think is now Gary Rowett's heaviest ever defeat, eclipsing. He lost 6-1 with Millwall, I believe it was. I believe it was in his first season at the Den. So that's an unfortunate change to the record books for Gary Rowett. But let's move on to the more important game, of course. Oxford United finally picking up our first point of the campaign, coming from behind twice to draw 2-2 with Coventry City. As always, we'll start with the lineup. And going through this, obviously it was a much more attacking lineup than we saw last weekend. This is probably going to be a theme that continues throughout the rest of the season, which Gary Rowett sets up with a 5 at the back away from home, and then we look to go at teams at the Castad. Will, when it came to this lineup, I know for me, I looked at it and went, okay, Turaves is a positive. He always kind of goes under the radar, a very steady performer. The usual questions about Matt Phillips and Tyler Goodrum after recent performances. Little bits come from the bench. How were you feeling going into this game with that lineup?
Yeah, I felt quite positive. It seemed a bit more attacking. It seemed like we weren't just going to sort of try and defend the 0-0 draw. Like you said, we had a few more attacking options. I think, Phillips and Goodrum can sort of have their places in the squad questioned. I mean, I think Phillips, to his credit, being quite a strong performance in the second half at least. I think it's also good because I knew that we had options coming off the the bench, like with Prelec, and he was actually one of the bright spots against Brighton, actually, because he came on in the second half and he actually seemed decent. He nearly scored, I think, with his first touch. So I mean, yeah. I mean, like, so I looked at that. I thought, well, a bit more positive. Maybe we might have something going forward, and then we've also got options on the to come off the bench if we really want to go for them.
Connor, in terms of the bench, was there any that you felt had, like Will said, Predic put in a decent performance in the couple of minutes he got against Brighton? Is there any you thought that were really making a push and had made a shout for starting after the last couple of league games over some that did?
Yeah, the obvious one for me who I've been pushing for, been very heavy on this season, as you know, Sam, is Stan Mills. I cannot understand why he wasn't starting the game, but I sincerely hope that after the international break, that when Rowett has a few more of his players back, that he will be able to put different players into where he wants to go. But Stan Mills, for me, is really one that should have been starting this game. I know that he played, 60, 70 minutes against Brighton, so we already had an inclination that he wasn't going to start. But as well as Mills coming on and looking bright, I also had thought that when Luke Harris came on, he was getting himself about and he was putting in a good shift. And obviously the same with Prelec. And you have to, as much as at times I say that he gets bullied in this league, and I'm not averse to slagging him off, apart from that one huge opportunity that was missed when Dembele, I thought that he had a good game. He was getting past the man and he was actually going at them. Just one moment of being overstimulated when, it could have been another famous win at the Sam. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the most positive thing out of that lineup was seeing how much stronger the bench is compared to even last week or a couple of weeks ago. So, as I say, going into the international break, now that we have this 2-week break, hoping, touch wood, that we don't get any other injuries, that it's going to start looking a lot brighter.
Definitely. We'll come on to Stan Mills because, I thought we looked a much better attacking side with him on the pitch. Yeah. And like you said, I don't know what he's got to do to get a start, in the league under Gary Wright. He so often is coming off the bench and, to a certain extent, I understand that, get him running at tired legs. So, I'm sure that there's some thinking behind Rowett's decisions. Obviously, as always, I'm just going to show some of the overwhelming stats from the game on the screen. One that isn't on the screen that I wanted to point out is that Oxford and Coventry were combined caught offside 9 times in this game. 5 for Oxford, 4 for Coventry. From a Coventry point of view, obviously they were sitting very, very high. Hadji Wright from Mason Clark making the move to try and get beyond our defence, but Longy and Hellick and Lee and Terves really, stepping up well as a defensive unit. From it, you can see that Coventry probably deserved it, but I think mainly that comes from the first half. I thought second half we looked a much better side. And, obviously, as we'll talk about in a minute, there was opportunities for both sides to win it late on. We'll focus on the first half just for the time being. Connor, look, we didn't start well at all. And, it was only a matter of time till their goal came in. Obviously, it comes from I think it bounces off Mikhail Hellick when he tries to make a challenge into the path of Hadji Wright, and again potentially Jamie coming questionable at his near post.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sam, would have been interesting if you managed to get the momentum graph on there, because if you take a look at it, it is quite night and day compared to literally a game of 2 halves. But you're right, yeah, Jamie Cummings. His presence at the near post does come into question again. From where I was in the north stand, when you were looking at it when it went in, you sort of thought that Cumming got a hand to it, which he did, but not being strong enough, and it trickles over the line, which was disappointing. But in that first 20 minutes, yeah, you saw why in, I think it was a previous league game or previous 2 league games before that, why they put 5 past QPR in the first half an hour. In the first half, they were just relentless, just going at it. But when you looked at their squad and you look at their attacking quality, the blokes I was sitting next to, we were looking at those names, as you say, Hadji Wright, Ephron Mason Clark, Jack Rodoni, and we're like, these are serious championship players, and they came and they shown it. And I think that a lot of us might be lying if we said that in the first half an hour we were we were not fearing because we absolutely were. It was an absolute onslaught. And it just showed, like, I thought, especially with that, the physicality shows like how physical they were compared to us, being able to make those runs and being able to get in behind, and also having that football intelligence to get into positions to play the ball forward. I was saying that, as you say, great work from Sam Long and Hellick being able to catch them in the offside trap, which at the end of the day saved our bacon, because they put the ball in the net 3 times inside the first half an hour, 35 minutes.
Yeah, and then
2 ruled out for offside. Yeah, and that. But after, sorry, we'll come on in a second. But I think that we should also mention that as much as there were shortcomings at Jamie coming and letting the first goal being a bit of a presence at his near post, what a brilliant save that he made when Ephron Mason Clark went through 1-on-1 and really, to his own standards, should have put the ball in the back of net. So I think that we can see that coming made up for that.
Yeah, definitely. Gone well.
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of building on the point Connor made about them being more physical. I mean, they were just the first to every ball, every loose ball they won. They had a way of playing through us. We would sort of do this like half-ass press where it would just be like half our team would go forward and they just play through it easily. The offside trap definitely saved us, I think, because I mean, we're happy to get a point, but let's be honest, like when it came to half time, we could have been 2 or 3 down. I think, especially if that opportunity that Jamie Cummings saved had gone in, I think the game would have been beyond us. I think they were all over us. Their attacking quality definitely showed. We just didn't really have anything going forward, and we didn't really offer much up in defence as well, I'll be honest.
No, sorry, Sam. I thought it showed that why their signing of Matt Grimes back in January was so important to them, because in a way he was kind of going hidden, but some of the passes that he was making, and he was just everywhere. It kind of reminded me of, remember Bolton in League One with Sheehan? They were just giving everything to Sheehan, and he was kind of playing in that quarterback role. That kind of reminded me, but obviously to a much greater level of what Matt Grimes was doing.
Yeah, definitely. Matt Grimes is one of those players that, he doesn't get all the plaudits, but he goes about his job very consistent, and when you look at the game on the whole, you see, and you kind of analyse the match, you go, God, the role he plays is so important for Coventry. It was the same when he was at Swansea as well. Obviously, we do equalise 7 minutes after Hadgerite puts the ball in the back of net. A free kick won by Will Lancashire. Ball goes forward from Jamie Cumming. Lancashire's brought down, and obviously then Brannagan goes for goal. It's parried by Rushworth, and there is Lancashire to follow up. The kind of striker's instinct that we're sometimes lacking at this football club. But Lancashire, he's looking like a really, really good addition. 2 goals in, I think it's 4 appearances. Or might be just 3, I can't remember. For Will Lancashire, he's already looking a very smart addition. Obviously, we'll come on to the other 2 goals in that game. But what we all both your thoughts on in terms of Lancashire's contribution, because the thing that I always find so interesting is it's not just that. His presence as a striker, keeping the defenders thinking. It's also the way he uses his body, the way he's always right on top of his defenders. Well, if you kick us off on Lancashire.
Yeah, I thought he played really well. I mean, like you said, like that striker's instinct is something that Oxford have been lacking. Would Harris have put that ball in the back in there? I mean, he probably would have put it wide, let's be honest, especially with his current form. I think, just his general play was brilliant. Also, winning the free kick was very important, because we know that Coventry, especially this season, one of their few flaws is they've been quite poor at defending set pieces. I think most of their goals they've conceded this season have been from set pieces. I think, just the way that he harries the defence, just the way that he creates spaces, the runs that he makes, the goals that he scored. He got a good goal against Hull. He got a goal yesterday. I think he's sort of the addition that we need. We need somebody finally who can actually put the ball in the back of the net. I mean, Mark Harris is brilliant because he's a workhorse and he harries the defence, but he just can't seem to score at the moment. And so Lancashire is sort of good because he's sort of filling that gap, I'd say.
Definitely. Connor, if I can ask you to kind of, obviously you're the EFL expert around these parts, is there things that you're already seeing from Will Lancashire that, was, although he only made not that many appearances when he was on loan at West Brom last season. Similar kind of attributes and that kind of thing that he was displaying in his short time at Hawthorns.
Yeah, as we said, he's putting himself about a bit, and he's got that physical game as well to him, and he's making that shown, especially when in set pieces you see he's going up and he's getting some of the balls and making contact with a fair few. The main thing that I've noticed from his time in West Brom to now, and whether that's been the time that he's had back at Tottenham over the summer, is that he seems to have gained a bit of a killer instinct compared to when he was at West Brom. He has 2 goals at the moment to his record in 4 games, but if you think back over, only because of marginal offsides, he could have 4 and 4. So I think that he's added that to his game, and he's brought what he had in Premier League 2 and been able to bring that to the senior game, which is, especially for us when we've been crying out for a centre forward at Championship level, is so vital. I don't think that we've had a striker this potent and maybe this natural ability to put the ball in the back of the net that we're currently finding at the moment than since when we had Matty Taylor in his early days. And I don't think that's too much of a wild comment, because if you think about Matty Taylor, and he had 3 chances in League One, he was going to put 1 away. I know it's still early days, and we'll have to see if this replicates itself after the international break. But I feel that this may be something that we may find with Lancashire. You give him 3 chances maybe in Championship level, and he's going to put at least 1 away. Now, is he going to be a top Championship striker this season? I don't think so, because the top Championship strikers, they get 1.5 chances and they put them away.
Yeah.
However, I think that this is a very, very positive sign that we have, and if we're able to, as we alluded to earlier on, we're bringing on players like Stan Mills who can put a ball in. If Dembele can carry on the performance that he had during last week, I would still like, and we'll get onto it, still like to see a bit more reinforcements out wide. But if we can still get players in that can support him in that role, there is no reason as to why that he can't continue to excel at what he's doing at the moment. And we just hope that nothing happens at Tottenham, that we have another Tottenham loaning takeaway, because I think that we do really have a live spark here. Because if you're a striker and being picked for England under 21s, you're obviously doing something right. So I think overarching point, that summer that he's had away, that he's gone to reflect and maybe worked on at Tottenham, has been so pivotal to his game and coming now.
And also has obviously been called up for the England under 21s, and we saw what in a short time with us what that did for Dane Scarlett in terms of getting his confidence. It's already in decent form. Hopefully that's just he sees that as a vindication for all the work he's putting in, like you said, when he was at West Brom and in Premier League 2 with Tottenham, and obviously since he's come to the Castad. Unfortunately, it was Will Lancashire that gave away the free kick, which led to a brilliant goal from Torp for Coventry. Right in the roof of the net, no chance for Jamie Cumming. As we said, it was definitely coming, but into half time, I think it was certainly there was certainly positive to take out of that game compared to recent performances. Will, did you, when we were kind of in the half-time period and thinking over the game, were you thinking, okay, they've been on top for the majority, but we've definitely got a chance to, to at least grab a point in this?
Yeah, I was thinking we had a chance to grab a point. I think my biggest thought was, thank goodness we're only 1 goal down, because like I said, it could have been 2 or 3. And that sort of gave us the opportunity. I thought we were defending quite well with the offside trap, especially. I think it was actually, in a way, it was almost better to go in a goal down than to go down like 1-1, because if we went into the second half 1-1, let's be honest, Gary Howe probably would have ended up just wanting to defend that draw. Whereas because we were a goal down, it sort of prompted him and gave him the impetus to actually try and go for it, which he did. He sort of changed things around, and he brought on those 3 substitutions a little way into the second half. So yeah, I was thinking, I think sort of to finish my point, my biggest thought was, thank goodness it's just 1 goal, because if Coventry start to run away with this, goodness knows what it could get. I mean, we saw with QPR, it could be pretty brutal. And yeah, but as we're a goal down, it sort of gives us the motivation to actually go for it instead of just defend the draw.
Definitely. Obviously, in the second half, kind of, it started. I thought we started bright. Obviously, Coventry have another decent opportunity to get themselves that 2-goal cushion. what I thought was quite interesting was obviously Gary Rowett makes 3 substitutions on the 72nd minute. He brings on Nick Prelec, he brings on Sariki Dembele and Stan Mills. Those being for Shane Poheta, Matt Phillips, and for Tyler Goodrum. As we mentioned, Stan Mills completely changes, the game in my view. Prelec as well. Sariki Dembele also, injecting that little bit of pace to run at that a tiring defence. And we'll get on to the Brannagan goal in a second. I thought it was quite interesting that after the game, in Frank Lampard's interview, he's speaking about, that, like you said, Will, that his side could have been 2 or 3 goals ahead. But they kind of plateaued in the second. He only made 1 substitution, which was in the 87th minute. Do you think that because we had these extra bodies, like you say, the quality that we didn't have in previous games, Prelec and Mills and Dembele to bring on, that it put us in a better position than it did Coventry to maybe go on and get the 3 points, because it looked like Lampard was holding out for the 11 men he deployed to get the job done.
I thought we could have had a chance to win the 3 points. I think it's quite weird that Coventry sort of took their foot off the gas in the second half and they didn't just sort of go for it. Maybe he was sort of trusting that, we've played really well, we're going to get the opportunities, it's just going to be a matter of time before we put one of them away or another one away, and by that point the game's gone for Oxford. I thought, with the pace we brought on, with the fact that we were really sort of going at them for once, we definitely could have had an opportunity to sneak a win in. I think we had a good chance right towards the end. I can't quite remember who it was. So that's all I got to say, really.
Connor, if you want to go on.
I was going to say, I think we should mention that Coventry did have an excellent chance to win it, and it was hitting Hadji Wright hitting the bar, and it was just nice that for once that we had luck fall on our side. I'd also like to say, just going back to their second goal, was it just me who thought that was a very long 10 yards?
I wasn't paying attention.
Space between,
it didn't jump out to me.
Where we were from the north stand, we looked and we said that's a very long 10 yards between space between the ball and the wall, but it's just picking up finer details. But anyway, go on, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I will mention the fact that obviously Hadji Wright has a massive opportunity to get Coventry the 3 points. But I did feel, we obviously had our own chances, like Dembele, rush of blood to the head moment, brilliant ball across from Stan Mills, and he just fires it over the bar. Nick Prelec, came on and looked really good, and it's. He gives us a really, really interesting new dimension to things. With his presence, he's got more pace than I thought he would do. Than it seemed he did when he was on loan at Ostrevien last season. I really like the look of lad. And like I say, Luke Harris, although he didn't have an awful lot of time, it was a bright cameo for the Welsh Youth International. Obviously, should complete the set by mentioning that, of course, the equaliser comes from Cameron Brannagan, surprise. A really, really good free kick, bends it around the wall, catches Rushworth out. Really fantastic set piece from Cam. And quite funny that his conversion rate from set pieces is a bit better than it was last season.
Yeah. I think about when he's taken free kicks directly last season. How many did he score directly, ones that haven't been rolled? Because when I think off the top of my head, Blackburn one was rolled.
Yeah.
Cardiff City was rolled.
Yeah.
I think those are the only 2 screamers free kicks that I can remember that he took. Yeah. And he scored in the back of the net. So yeah, you're right.
Fantastic record.
No, he can do it. He can easily do it in League One, but obviously the Championship's been a bit of a step up. But anyway, over the weekend they were magic moments last year. Sorry, Sam. I also want to say before we move on, there's one player we haven't mentioned that I thought was a very big unsung hero, especially in the defensive unit. I thought that Teraves had an absolutely phenomenal game.
Sensational.
So I think that we should pick up on him. For me, yes, Bran will get the plaudits because he get the assist and the goal, but he was my man of the match. I thought that he was absolutely outstanding out wide, out on the right hand side. Sorry.
Obviously, a goal line clearance as well in the first half. I think it was there from Mason Clark. Torres, fantastic performer. He's a signing that's kind of gone on the radar from last season, because obviously we had 3 right backs in the being used regularly by Des and by Rowett. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Hideo Torres. The work he does, both in the attacking and defensive units. The fact that he takes the best parts of Longy as a defender and Kyoso in the attacking sense and combines them into one left back. First point on the board. I can't lie, lads. I was looking at the fixtures, going, I can't see us getting a point till October. But the fact that we've got this monkey off our back, obviously we're still in the bottom 3, but only 4 matches played. And there is a side who are still without a point. I'm not going to ask for predictions for the rest of September, because obviously we'll go through each of those games bit by bit and things like that. But given the opposition we're going to face in September, to get the confidence by having our first point on the board, by coming from behind, to get that point, how important do we think that's going to be? Well, if you can kick us off.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very important. I also like to say that I think the international break is coming at a really good time for Oxford United. We sort of have time to get those injuries back fit and into the squad. I think this point gives us momentum, gives us a bit more morale. I mean, it would have been terrible to go into the international break after a 6-0 loss and then a loss to Coventry, because then the difference between having 0 points and 1 point, it really isn't much. But like, just for morale, just for thinking, like it does like make a difference. We can also go at Leicester, who are sort of in a similar place in the table to Coventry, and think, we can actually get something from this. And then after that, I think it's Bristol City, who, I mean, how stupidly hopeful I am, but I sort of fancy us maybe getting something from there. And then October is really the month where we really need to start putting points on the board, because that's when we start facing a lot of the teams who are going to be in the bottom half of the table with us. I think we're playing Wrexham, Sheffield as well. I don't know if we're playing both Sheffield teams, but I know we're playing at least one. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We'll play Sheffield United at the end of September.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Sheffield Wednesday at the end of October.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So that's our period where we can really start to get points on the board.
And we've got a horrible midweek trip to QPR on the 1st of October, which is going to be nasty.
Yeah.
Don't fancy
40
quid
tickets as well.
Again. Cheers, lads. Connor, in terms of, like Will said, it's just, not a lot of difference between a 0 and 1 point, but like I said, it's about the confidence, about the morale boost, and I imagine for Guy Rowett, it's also a bit of a relief kind of going into the international break with something to show for the first 4 games.
Yeah, the biggest thing to come out of the game, finally getting the point on the board is nice, but the biggest thing to take away from the game, which will be felt not only in the stadium but in the training ground, will also be that big boost of positivity. The fact that we performed to a standard in the second half, and we've seen that we can perform to that standard, and that's now the standards that Rowett's going to keep and say, okay, that's the base, now you've got to go higher. So I think that for Rowett, that's really... I don't think he was under pressure anyway, but there's a bit more, a bit of tension's been let off, and can be a bit more relaxed, but still keeping to those high standards and that high level of intensity when going into training. I think also we should take, like, with the positivity, I thought that when we saw it coming out in the second half, like the players responded to the fans, and there was for the first time in the 2 games against Portsmouth and Brighton, there was a good atmosphere this season, and I think the players really responded to that, and that's also what got them going and what drove up the intensity. So with this positivity that we've taken, I'd like to think that the Yellow Army and the fan base are going to take that into the first game back after the international break, as Will said, at home to Leicester, and we can make it a cauldron like it was last season, because what kept us up last season was that Gassam Stadium atmosphere, and big teams like Leicester come thinking that they're going to have a day out and steamroll us over. That didn't happen for a lot of championship clubs last season, and that's something that we're going to have to continue to do if we're going to achieve the same objective this season. And then, as Will said,
going on to Bristol City, which will be hard enough in itself because Struber's got them rolling. I just hope and pray that by this time in 3 or 4 weeks that Sheffield United have decided not to get rid of Ruben Sellers at this point. So that will be such an Oxford United thing. They lose their game and then Sellers gets sacked and then they have a manager bounce. But anyway, that's for then. That's for then. But anyway, yes, the boost of positivity was just as, if not more important than the point gained at the weekend.
Definitely. Obviously, tomorrow we've not mentioned obviously the transfer window shut. Nathan Cooper said on the on BBC Radio Oxford's post-game coverage that he believes there will be about 2 new additions by the end of by 7 p.m. tomorrow. What's obviously quite interesting is that Matt Ingram is now injured. He's done something to his thumb, but to be honest with you, all due respect for Matt Ingram for the career he's had, it's a massive loss. Given I think he's conceded a whopping amount of goals in his handful of Oxford United appearances.
He is our Andre Onana.
He really is, isn't he? I mean, to be honest with you, against Brighton, I was like, just start Eastie because Eastie's at least a decent shot stopper. Harun Ibrahim, obviously the link to the Swedish midfielder. He did not play for Gaish in their fixture, in their most recent fixture, so he didn't even make the bench. So it looks like he's definitely on the way out. Whether he'll be coming to the Castad, we'll wait and see. Having done a little bit of scouting, he seems like a proper like an Alexander Isak type, but in midfield in terms of the way he uses his body. He's got big strides. His close control is fantastic. Obviously, there's only so much you can gauge from highlight packages, obviously, but from what I did see, the lad seems like a bit of an athletic freak. So we'll wait and see kind of what happens with the rest of the window. We've obviously all made it clear that we think we do need a winger as well as another midfielder. I put on socials a couple of hours ago about Alex Matos. He's obviously off to Sheffield United for 10 million quid. He's not worth that much money. I love Matos, but he's not worth 10 million quid. Sellers had his complete pants pulled down there, isn't he? I wanted to kind of very quickly round up by getting your reaction to Rowett's comments about the last few days of the window being about in the market being proactive instead of reactive. In that, he obviously was referring to being Bren Davis in when it was apparent that Kieran Brown wasn't going to be back for a couple more weeks. Will, how did you kind of react to what all the kind of things he was talking about the transfer window when he was speaking with BBC Radio Oxford?
Yeah, I thought it was quite positive. I mean, he said there would still be a flurry of signings on deadline day, and then we still got some holes in the squad that we need to fill. So it gave me a little bit of hope. It's nice to see Oxford United spending a bit of money in the transfer windows for once, which hasn't always... I mean, it's been the case for the last few years, but before that, not really. Yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. There's that player who you said was going to come in. The second signing, I personally haven't heard any rumours for that, so I'm not sure who's that going to be. That defender that he recently brought in is good because it sort of fills that sort of left centre-back hole that's sort of left by Kieran Brown. So yeah, I'm quite pleased. It's good that, like, when he talks about being proactive and not reactive, it's nice that we're not making panic signings like we were sort of... Like, if you think back to like the end of Carl Robinson's reign, we were sort of making panic signings and, I'll bring in this striker, because we just need one. So it's nice that we're sort of being a little bit more calm and a bit more sort of measured about it, I'd say.
Definitely. Connor, in terms of obviously an out, which is obviously also likely to happen, Owen Dale was at the game yesterday. He's been training on his own or with the youth squad over the summer. Was linked by Indonesian outlets that Marcelino Ferdinand, he's training in Indonesia still, getting over that injury, that he might be on his way for a loan, I believe it was, to St Johnstone. Do you, from what kind of Rowett's words were, do you think it will be a case of outs first and then ins, or it will be kind of get the squad, get Ibrahim, for example, and maybe another player, and then it'll be right, business all done at midday. We've got 7 hours to get the likes of Owen Dale, to get any loanees like Stefan Negru to clubs for the season?
Rowett's a sensible manager. He's a sensible head coach, and obviously as from what we can gather, a fairly good relationship with Ed Waldron. I think that it would be very, very silly, even if they are training on their own, to let players out before we get them in. Especially, as you say, with Owendale, who seems to have been ostracised for whatever reason. We don't know what the real reason is. I did catch a glimpse of him at the Brighton game, and I overheard a bit of a conversation he had with someone he knew, and the words that I picked up that came out of his mouth were, "It's up to the club." So not take that what you will for what's going on there about his situation. But yeah, I think it's better that we get people in before we let them go, because you never know what's going to happen, especially with our injury record the first couple of weeks of the season. And I'm sure that if ever Rao has to go to Owendale and call upon him, he's not going to say no. I don't think that's really in Owendale's character. I'd also like to say that am I getting this right, Sam? You can correct me if I'm not. That Nathan Cooper on BBC Radio Oxford made the comment about bringing in a midfielder or a number 10 like Rodriguez, but with a Z and not an S. Is there anything in that, do you know? Or is that just complete hoo-ha?
So not that I am aware of yet. I will say it's a bit of a cheeky comment from Nathan, because, you know, there are a million Rodriguez with Z. We could be signing, I don't know, blooming James Rodriguez.
Alex Rodriguez, get him back.
Put Alex Gorin at number 10. I'm here all day for it. But, you know, it is an interesting one, you know, like we saw when Des was about to come in. You know, Nathan Cooper and obviously the Radio Oxford team are very, very in the know. So, you know, that'll probably be the first signing that we see. I'd imagine tomorrow. I don't think there's going to be anything for the rest of Sunday. But obviously, lots of stuff to do for the football club. We're at the kind of that time of year where, as Will said, kind of the clubs are usually making panic signings, and kind of looking, you know, sat down at 6:30 with a transfer deadline going, hang on a minute, we've got about four places in the squad we still need to fill, and they're going something go on.
You might see that with all the activity that's expected in the Premier League on deadline day. You might see if that has a domino effect going down into the EFL. And we also need to remember that out in Europe, a lot of their transfer windows don't end tomorrow, whereas ours does. So we never know what's going to go on, if there's any player that might potentially, it's a long shot, but potentially go out overseas or whatever. And as you say, yeah, just going back to, I've just thought of other players that might be going out, players like Josh Johnson or Gatlin O'Donker. He might be one that I think he's a certainty that we might see him go out again. But yeah, we'll just have to sit tight and wait and see what it's like come, and then we can all panic come 6:45 tomorrow evening.
Absolutely. At the very least, I hope we don't get another, you know, don't go to bed yet, lads, and then it's blooming like Matty Taylor's loan departure. Honestly, that haunts us for yonks, and that will haunt us for evermore. That blooming
that transfer window was atrocious.
We'll have to do a special episode on one of the international breaks about just kind of the catastrophe that was Carl Robinson's final year at the club. Just all the stuff that happened there was, honestly, you could fill at least 2 books with all the stuff that happened allegedly. But yes, gents, obviously we've got a week's break now. We have got plans in the works for a little special episode to bring you next week to fill the void, so you haven't got to go 14 days without an episode of Walking the London Road. But, of course, we'll see you for that special episode. And, of course, like I said, Leicester City is the next game, so we'll come to you with that on the Monday again. So, yes, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us out. And listen to the podcast on Spotify on the go if you can't sit down and watch the whole 40-minute thing. Thank you very much. See you later.